Hi, and welcome to day 10 of my recombobulation countdown to my next birthday. I have been in this recombobulation process. I've just been allowing um, the thoughts and feelings to wander through of looking back at where I've been um, and kind of connecting the dots backwards from where I am. It was Steve Jobs who said, you can't connect the dots forward, you can only connect them backwards. So I've really been looking at what do I feel, not so much what do I think, but what do I feel I am being called to now? What is the reason to get up in the morning other than the shoulds and the have tos? How will I not be left with any regrets on my deathbed? And that's one of the things that's been calling to me to talk about are the 5 regrets of the dying that give us a map, at least give me a map for the way I want to live my life now while I'm still breathing in this reality. But maybe that will be tomorrow. We'll see what emerges. But I've been reflecting on who I am as a woman. I mean, I know that we're really leaning in this direction of finally understanding that we're not defined by our gender. We're not who we are by our gender, but we carry with us the qualities of both masculine and feminine. However, I know that somehow whatever mission was given me, or whatever that magic contract was that we all signed and then couldn't read the small print as we came to this reality, whatever I was intended to do had something to do with serving women. And that's been a ley line through my whole life. It seems that I've always looked at healing my own experiences as a woman, how to balance that with the masculine, but how to fully own who I am. And yesterday, I know that it was my intention today to talk about my experience attending the Women's March in Seattle this year. And I have to preface this with saying, I don't, this isn't about politics. It's about following where I feel called and taking my values and my integrity and matching it against the greatest opportunity before me, and then making a choice. So please know that it really isn't about politics. It's about what's in my heart. Because I have supported women throughout my whole lifetime, not because I was for Hillary because she had her faults, or not because I was against Trump because he had his faults. I stand for women and for the power of unconditional love. And so with the election for so many women, I mean, I know that it became we all became aware of how fractured our United States of America is. And had not Trump been elected, we wouldn't have had that deep awareness truly brought to the surface. So in that way, it is an incredible gift to us all. However, I did feel very compelled to go to the Women's March, and not only in our own community here in Port Townsend, but to Seattle. And I felt very fortunate to go with a young family, a couple with their 6-year-old, almost 7, she might be 7, and their toddler, 18-month-old, I'm thinking, and a dear friend of mine. So we were in there, we stayed on that side. We attempted to get the bus down to the center of town in order to get to where the start of the march was. And it was packed. It was amazing how many people there were. We crunched like in a tuna can on this bus and got down to where our connecting bus would have been. But there were, I don't know, 50, 60 people there waiting at the bus stop. And we soon became clear that there was no way that we were going to be able to connect our bus to get to the start of the march. We went then to the underground, hoping to take the mass transit to the beginning of the march. And there were so many people there, there was no way that we were going to get on a bus. However, what I did observe when we were at that point was that there was a woman in a wheelchair. And as the next bus or trolley or tram, bus line train pulled in, people saw that this woman who had challenges, physical challenges, what happened was it's like the parting of the Red Sea. The everybody who was so patiently waiting for the next bus or train, people actually got off of the bus so that they would lose their spot to get there to allow this woman who had challenges. It wasn't spoken, it wasn't argued, it's just what women tend to do. The energy, there were people present, men and women, who were angry about the fact that Trump was in office. However, what I witnessed and what I saw were women taking a stand for their beliefs, men taking a stand for their beliefs that equality and integrity and honesty are values we should all step into and live from. So what we decided to do, knowing we wouldn't get on the train to go to the front of the march, is we decided to walk the march line backwards to eventually get to where the march was going to start. And it was just amazing to be with the people doing that. What we realized is that by the time of the start of the march, we had gotten to the front of the line by walking the march path backwards. And that beginning of that march was so incredibly powerful. Between the bicycle policemen who were making sure that all was safe and they were working together, a female motorcycle cop who came and announced with her bullhorn that the indigenous women would start the march first. And then just looking back at this sea of men and women, we all fell into line behind the indigenous women and did this incredible march. And as we marched, I thought how powerful it was that people just knew what to do because they were following their hearts. They were standing in their truths. They were speaking their beliefs, but it was all in a mutual support and a mutual respect. This little 6-year-old who was walking with us, at one point she got tired, and her dad picked her up and placed her on his shoulders. And she was able to look to her, in front of her and behind her and to her right and her left, and see nothing but amazing people full of energy with signs. And she was reading all of the signs and looking at all of the pink hats that women were wearing to take a stand for having had who now was going to be, who now at this point was our president, that he had said these derogatory, horrible things about women in violation of women. So she was on her dad's shoulders and she said, "Daddy, what is this word, pussy? What does that word mean?" And I was so touched that what I consider to be the epitome of the unification of masculine and feminine energy, he was protecting his daughter as well as wanting her to stand in her strength. So what he said to her, "Oh, sweetheart, that word isn't pussy. That word is pussy. And that is a word that you think of a kitty cat, but it is a word that has been used as a mean way of talking about a woman's private parts. And your private parts are your privates. They're for no one else unless you choose." And so he went on this brief conversation that was reduced to the understanding of a 7-year-old with such grace and eloquence, very matter-of-factly, but with real power. His intention was to empower his daughter to know that the truth about why those women and men too were marching and taking a stand that day. It wasn't truly about politics. It was about taking a stand for women and children. And so that was the power of that day for me. The other amazing thing that would happen is that a swell of sound would come from the very back of the march, wash over us like a wave, and go to the very front of the march. And then a few minutes later, it clearly had reached the front of the march and had worked its way to the back of the march. It would go over us again like another wave, washing the other direction. It was one of the most powerful things in my life, because when Trump had been elected, I saw all of my work, all of my sweat and tears and positive intentions and energy that had been devoted to taking a stand for women and children. I saw that threatened and had lost hope that my life, will I ever see it in my lifetime? Will all that I have worked for been for nothing? And marching that day with young families, with grandmas who were spurred into action, with introverts who were out marching, with men and women and gays and straights and transgenders and people dressed as butterflies. It was truly a most amazing, empowering way, reminding me that even if in my lifetime I don't cross that finish line knowing that my granddaughter and my daughters and the 7 generations that will come behind them, hopefully, that even without knowing that for certain, that there's a certain power of women that lives, that cannot be extinguished, that lives in men and women alike, that dares to take a stand for their values. So that is an essential part of my recombobulation as I ponder and wonder and determine and claim what's ahead of me and my part in it. Thanks.